I had an affair with our maid, but my wife claims she doesn't exist and insists I'm losing my mind. Now strange events are making me question my own sanity. My wife and I are both busy professionals. I've got a job in IT, and she's starting out as a lawyer. You can probably guess that our schedules are pretty packed, leaving barely any time for stuff like housework. We live in a 2-bedroom apartment in the heart of the city, and just 2 weeks ago, we had to let our previous maid go because she kept skipping work without giving us any notice. That meant we had to start the hunt for a new maid. After about a month of asking around, my wife finally found someone named Gloria. Our neighbor from apartment 103B had suggested her to my wife. And let me tell you, the moment I laid eyes on Gloria, I couldn't help but notice how she made my wife look tiny standing next to her. Gloria had this striking fair skin, beautiful eyes, a face that could turn heads, and a slender build that just drew me in from the get-go. I guess I should have felt a bit guilty about noticing. But honestly, can you really blame a guy for being taken in by someone so gorgeous? So, I decided I'd try to have a little fling with Gloria. My wife probably wouldn't even catch on since I work from home most days, and she spends her time at the local courthouse. Over the next week, I gradually built a bit of rapport with Gloria, and judging by the way she'd blush and smile, I figured she liked me back. I made my first move on a Tuesday evening, exactly 2 weeks after she started working for us. But as luck would have it, that also ended up being the last time. We were on the sofa, leaning in close, when suddenly I heard the door creak open. My wife walked right into the living room and caught us in the middle of it. I pulled back fast and stepped away, cornered like a deer in headlights, while my wife started yelling at Gloria for seducing her husband and throwing around plenty of other accusations that don't really matter here. But what threw me off the most was when she kept calling Gloria an old hag over and over. Just looking at Gloria, that insult didn't make any sense at all. Later that night, after a lot of apologizing, my wife decided to forgive me. It was odd, since she isn't usually the forgiving type, but I didn't question it too much. I needed to keep our marriage intact. Still, one thing kept bugging me. "Why did you call Gloria an old hag? She looks pretty young, doesn't she?" I asked her. She shot back, "What are you talking about? Are you feeling all right? That woman is old enough to be your grandma. She's got wrinkled skin, white hair, and it seems like her knees might give out at any moment." I didn't know what to say to that. It seemed like the whole thing had hit my wife so hard that she'd started imagining things. But anyway, I decided to call off the affair. It wasn't worth risking my marriage over, not to mention the headache of explaining everything to my parents, who still think I'm their good, traditional son. We also figured it was best to keep Gloria around. Maids are hard to come by these days, and one mistake wasn't worth losing help over. This strange episode with my wife and her weird take on Gloria's looks seemed like a one-off, just a reaction to the shock of the situation. But as time went on, my wife started making more and more bizarre claims. The next strange incident revolved around a disagreement we had about our son. Just yesterday, Gloria was singing a soothing lullaby to our 1-year-old. She kept singing for 4 hours straight, sitting in the same spot while gently rocking his little red cradle. I remember lying down for a nap around 1 p.m. and waking up at 4 p.m., only to find her in the exact same position, repeating the same words over and over. "Oh, little baby, you are so cute. We will drown you in a well." I know the lyrics sound unsettling, but it didn't strike me as that odd since she came from a nearby village, and village lullabies can be pretty unusual. In my groggy state, just after waking up, I felt like I was hallucinating for a solid minute. I kept staring at Gloria's feet, and it seemed like they were turned backward. I blinked a few times, rubbed my eyes, and they looked normal again. Later, I confronted my wife about not paying enough attention to our son. I pointed out that Gloria seemed to be caring for him better than either of us, but she looked at me as if I'd lost my mind. "We don't have a son. You really need to see a doctor," she said. "What? We have a 1-year-old. How could you forget? And you should be paying more attention to him. Gloria sang him a lullaby for 4 hours straight today. She's taking much better care of him than you are," I shot back. "Ugh, I'm divorcing you. You're imagining things that don't exist. And by the way, Gloria wasn't even here today. She texted me this morning saying she needed the day off. So, whatever you're seeing, it's not her. It's just your mind playing tricks on you. But we have a son. How could you just forget about him? That thought kept sticking in my head, feeling like the most critical point amid all these strange happenings and my wife's seeming detachment from reality. Sure, making up stories about our maid was one thing, but denying our own child's existence? That was a new low. Oh, really? Then tell me his name. What does he look like? When was he born? Where is he right now? Because I don't see any 1-year-olds around here. And where's his toy box? His cradle? She fired back, eyebrow raised. I opened my mouth to respond, but it felt like it just kept stretching wider and wider. I tried to recall the details, but my mind was blank. My wife stared at me, her face a mix of anger and nervousness, clearly feeling vindicated. I finally managed to close my mouth and huffed as I headed to bed. She chose to sleep in the other bedroom, not wanting to be near me. Then, the third bizarre incident happened when my wife tearfully told me she was leaving the house. She claimed she saw Gloria crawling on all fours on the walls of our bedroom the night before. I told her once again that she was being ridiculous. The truth was, I had secretly called Gloria over at 1 a.m. to help with our crying son in the living room, especially since my wife had locked herself in the other bedroom to sleep, apparently ignoring his cries. But after about 15 minutes of Gloria singing her usual lullaby and rocking the red cradle, he quieted down. She really was good with the baby. I slept like a rock after that. When I told my wife this, she screamed, "We don't have a child. I think we've let a Chew-Dale into our house. If you want to survive, get out now." She ran out of the house sobbing, dragging her suitcase behind her. For those who don't know, a Chew-Dale is like an Indian version of a creepy witch, similar to what you see in horror movies like The Ring. But her thing is that her feet are backward. I wondered if my wife would ever regain her sanity, because Gloria was no Chew-Dale. I tried to piece together what had happened the previous night, hoping to gather some solid evidence that my wife was the one who'd gone crazy, not me. The strange events around our house were starting to make me doubt my own sanity. I checked my call log and WhatsApp messages, hoping to find proof that I had contacted Gloria to help with our son. But there was nothing there. In fact, I couldn't even find Gloria's contact details in my phone. Frustration boiled up inside me. Somehow, I had dozed off right after checking for Gloria's information, and now I've just woken up. It's 1 a.m., and I can hear my son crying in the living room in his red cradle. Looks like I need to call Gloria again.